3, 2, 1. Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Edinburgh. And we are wrapping up our path to the Edinburgh, which can mean only one thing. We're in the Edinburgh. So, let's look at our commander. We're running Azure Lane Belfast with Nikolai von Essen and Nikolai Kuznetsov as our commander inspirations. We have not no-fly zone, Piercer, full speed ahead, punch through, fixated, and refill station as our inspirations. Let's look at our build. We're running Aiming Systems Mod 1. We're running Steering Gears Mod 2. Concealment System Mod, and Main Battery Mod 3. As you can see, we're running the Alpha Tester flag. We have the Hot Racers Transformers camo on this thing. We are running the Epic Battle Booster for more range. We also have sonar, and we are running the smoke, though I've been considering swapping the smoke for radar because honestly I think I'd get more use out of the radar than I get out of the smoke. But that's just me. Stats. 36,400 hit points with no torpedo damage reduction. You have 152mm 50 caliber Mark 23 guns. You have 12 of those that reach out to 16.6 kilometers and reload in 6.3 seconds. 180-degree turn time is 29.6 seconds. So the turrets are kind of slow at traversing, but you get a decent reload. It's on par with other Tier 7 light cruisers. AP shells, though, are all you get to fire, and they do a maximum damage of 32.55. And secondaries, you have 102mm 45 caliber QF Mark 19s that you have 12 of that reach out to 5.2 kilometers, reload in 3 seconds, do a maximum of 1,500 damage with their HE shells, and a 6% chance to set fires. Torpedoes. You have 533mm TR Mark 4s. You have 6 of those, one triple launcher on either side of the ship. The reload time is 72 seconds, so they reload relatively quickly. Maximum damage is 15,533 with a 1.3 kilometer detectability, so their average detection. And then torpedo range is 10 kilometers, which is nice. Torpedo speed, though, 62 knots, not the fastest, not the slowest. But the thing about torpedo launchers on this thing, it doesn't have the best torpedo launch angles. I mean, it's not as bad as the Japanese, but it's not the best torp launch angles, which means oftentimes if you're trying to close the distance to YOLO torp, you got really two options. You've got, okay, we're going to turn in and give up our cheek to be penetrated by everybody and anything, and you'll likely be dev struck before you get your torpedoes off, or you go in, stay bow in, and you do a drive-by and torp them on the way by. Those are your two options. Either way, you're going to get punched. AA defense, 20mm Oerlikon Mark 5s. You have 28 of those doing 85 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 40mm Bofors Mark 6s. You have 18 of those that do 88 damage per second and reach out to 3.5 kilometers. Then you've got the 102mm 45 caliber QF Mark 19s, dual purpose secondaries. You've got 12 of those that do 90 damage per second and reach out to 5 kilometers. Maneuverability, 35.1 knots, so it's decently quick for a cruiser, especially at Tier 7. Turning circle radius is 680 meters, so not horrible, but not amazing either. Rudder shift time is 6 seconds, though if you went with a double rudder shift build and dropped the concealment mod, you could get that down a little further. Concealment. With our concealment system mod, we are down to a 10.3 kilometer detectability. So it is relatively sneaky, and I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could get that even lower and get down to probably stealth radar sort of numbers. Possibly. Can't guarantee that, but you could possibly get it down to stealth radar, where you've got the radar of 9 kilometers, and you're able to, once you get detected radar, and you're pretty much golden. Detectability by air, 6.5. Guaranteed is always 2. And detectability while firing in smoke is actually really good at 4.9 kilometers for a cruiser. That's pretty good. Now, the interesting thing about the Edinburgh is that it has 30mm bow. This is something that it enjoys more than anything else. And what is the significance of a 30mm bow? It cannot be overmatched by 16-inch guns. However, it doesn't really matter if it cannot be overmatched by 16-inch guns, because anything that shoots at this thing generally goes through the deck. Even though the deck's supposedly 30mm as well, like, this thing gets chewed apart, even at relatively close ranges, by any battleship caliber guns. Like, it is really obnoxious to play this ship, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there that love this ship, but I'm not one of them. Anyway, like I said, you've got a 30mm deck, 30mm bow. Now, you have to be careful, because 30mm, unlike 32mm, 30mm can be overmatched by the Georgia, those 457mm guns of the Georgia. So keep that in mind. The Georgia's 457mm guns can overmatch 31.7, I think. It's like 31.7 millimeters of armor. So it can overmatch the Edinburgh and will likely depth strike the Edinburgh through the front if you're trying to YOLO a Georgia. So keep that in mind. Why is that a thing? Well, let's just take a look at the armor. Get rid of everything and go to the Citadel. It does have a slightly raised Citadel, and that is why this thing gets depth struck more than any Tier 7 cruiser except the Japanese. And that is just the fact that it is a long Citadel, and it is the easiest thing in the world to hit. Plunging fire gets through the deck, goes into the Citadel. Shooting through the bow, when you overmatch it, Citadel. Like, this thing gets Citadel by everything. If it's over-angled, Citadel. If it's, like I said, if it's plunging fire, it's Citadel. Anything that can and will Citadel, you're going to be Citadel by things. So your best bet is to try to avoid them, which is why you may decide to drop the concealment mod and go with the double steering gear for that extra, like, shiftiness. But the other side of this ship is it doesn't have very good range for a Tier 7 cruiser. So yes, you can try to dodge, but more often than not, you're dodging in intermediate ranges, and those aren't that hard to miss. Like, it's kind of hard to miss cruisers at, you know, that 10 to 12 kilometer range. I know this thing can fire out to 16 kilometers, if you remember correctly, so 16.6 kilometers with this build. But just keep that in mind. It is definitely something that you don't want to be testing. So keep that in mind. Alright, let's look at our overview. Sequential torpedoes, again, this is the British torpedoes. You can launch them tube by tube. It's got a flare for piercing, meaning it can only fire AP shells, and it has an amazing heel. That is the 30mm bow, and the heel on this thing is absolutely ridiculous, including the fact that it heals a ridiculous amount even if you get citadels. I actually had a match that I might, I don't know, I'm not actually going to show it because it doesn't make any sense to show it. I didn't do anything, but we get absolutely smashed by a Vanguard right off the bat because he had a destroyer that spotted and he got a shot off on me, and I thought I was covered by the island. I was not, and he actually fired armor piercing and literally took 3/4 of my health, maybe even like 4/5 of my health. I had nothing left, but I was able to heal up to back to half of my health or something like that. Even though it was Citadel damage. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Citadel damage generally can only heal like 30, or no, it's like 10% or something like that. And I think this thing can heal like 30% of the Citadel damage. I could be wrong, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm just trying to remember things that I've heard over the years. But it does have a really good heal, especially for a cruiser. Alright, so Edinburgh. The most powerful light cruiser in the Royal Navy during World War II, outrivaled most other same-type ships in terms of armor protection. She inherited powerful main guns from her predecessors, among other Royal Navy cruisers of the 1930s. Edinburgh carried more powerful AA weapons. She entered service in 1939, and there were 2 of them in the series. So, let's take a look at it. I gotta say, I haven't seen this camo until now. I like it. I kinda like it. It's a bit weird for a ship, but, you know, I've seen worse. And the Edinburgh is not a bad-looking ship. I don't mind the look of the ship at all. I just don't particularly like playing it. And, I mean, it's got a wing. Everybody knows having a wing is better. So, with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to jump in. It's going to be a bit of a double feature, but not really, because I'm only going to show like part of this match. But I think it really showcases one of my biggest issues with this ship. And that goes for all of the British light cruisers, is their lack of high explosive means that they have a really, really tough time dealing with cruisers that don't just go full dumb mode. And the reason for this is because when you think about DPM, you think about cruisers. There's nobody that does it better, with the exception of maybe two destroyers that have a chance, but I don't think that they quite have the DPM either. That would be Friesland and like Fletcher, Gearing, those sorts of guys, and obviously Kaba and that sort of thing. Any of your gunboat destroyers. But I think when most people think of DPM, we're going to be talking about cruisers. So you're going up against some of the highest DPM in the game, and the downside is you only have armor piercing, and everybody else is going to have HE. And so going bow in and having a 30mm bow means nothing in a cruiser fight. And the reason for this is because none of the cruisers overmatch each other, generally speaking. Now here you can see really flat trajectories mean we can't lob this island. So we have to actually pull up and get shots around the island, which is what we do. But you can see we turn in a little bit, and he's able to punch us pretty hard, even with our 30mm bow that everybody likes to talk about. We do get a pretty good shot into him, 4,200 damage so far done, and we're going to continue to push. Now we know there's two of them here. We know there's the Tallinn and the Mogami here. So we can't just be an idiot. We have to play this smart. We get our shot off here. We're going to get a pretty solid result, another 4,000 damage. We're using the island to keep us safe from the other cruiser, and we're going to be able to chunk this guy pretty hard, or at least we should be able to chunk this guy pretty hard. Now here you can see Miyoko comes broadside on, just begging for it, and we're actually going to struggle to find the citadel on this thing. We fire low here. Every shell drops into the water, even though we're trying to shoot the water line. So you want to aim a little above the water line with this thing. You can see we get two citadels there. We're trying to shoot the Tallinn here because I thought maybe I'd go through that side armor. We do get a pretty solid hit out of it. Miyoko again is just begging for it, so we're going to go ahead and take that shot. We absolutely smash him for 5 citadels there. Much better shot. And then the Tallinn comes out to do what he does. We aim up to the guns because we're trying to break his guns, but then we're going to run into issues where we bounce off the guns, and we're not actually going to be able to take this man's guns off. And then also we're being farmed from across the map because our entire team did nothing in this match, but that's not really a surprise nowadays, right? We're used to it. But we're in a fight with 2 cruisers. We can't affect the rest of the match currently. And the Tallinn is pushing towards us. He's going to try to get torpedoes off. We shoot through the side plating of that ship, and we're going to slow down. We're going to change direction. That's going to throw off his torpedoes, and the Colorado snipes our kill right at the last possible second. Didn't shoot the man at any point, but takes my kill. You got to love it. Then Miyoko, obviously pushing out, is going to give us a pretty juicy shot, but he's too close to the island. I'm not able to hit him. And I recognize that this is the front of his ship, which means he can't torp me from this angle, period. I already know. So we know he can't torp me, so we're going to rush in here and just finish him off. Now we can shoot around the island, so we go ahead and punch him through the bow. 6 full penetrations. And that's one thing I will say about this. It rarely overpins, even cruisers. Like, this thing rarely overpins. It's got very good armor piercing. But unfortunately, there's just nothing we can do. Here you can show a little bit of that heal. We're going to be able to get quite a bit of health back. We're dropping our smoke here because of the planes and the fact that we're surrounded completely. We've got a battleship on our right. We got a battleship off the nose. We got a battleship further back. We've got 2 cruisers shooting over the islands at us. We don't really have a whole lot we can do here. So we're going to try to use the island cover. This Iowa is spotted by our Helena. So I'm going to try to back up, use the island, and lob into this man's superstructure. Remember, American and German battleships have a pretty healthy superstructure, so look at the damage that we're going to get through the superstructure. Yeah, that's like 5,000 damage right there. So, yeah, it's pretty solid. Maybe it was 4,000, I don't know. But that dispersion will make you cry, because that was awful. But for the most part, you're going to get amazing dispersion out of this. You're going to be able to stack a lot of shells on target. I think we hit the guns with that shot. But Ochakov comes around the corner. He's not afraid of us. He's got all the help in the world. Comes around flat broadside. We get 5 full penetrations. Unfortunately, no Citadel, but we do punch him. Now, he's got his radar running, so our smoke is useless. And so we're really not happy about that, but nothing we can do. The man's going to try to push forward. I was hoping that he was kind of dumb. So I'm going to try to pull forward, use the island, bait this guy in, limit who can shoot at me, and try to force torpedoes onto him. But obviously, this guy knows what he's doing. He sees that I'm most likely trying to drop torps, and we get caught by a Massachusetts that's all the way in the back of the map. Well, I guess he's in the B cap now. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. And that's one of the downsides. That's why I really don't care for the ship too much, is because it's so one-dimensional. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, that 30mm bow allows you to close the distance. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. You got decent concealment with the concealment mod that gets you down to about the 10-kilometer range, meaning you can close the distance. It's very good at removing destroyers, but everything else, it's adequate, I would say, would be the best way. And like I said, even though it has a 30mm bow, for me, even bow tanking at close range, this thing just gets chewed up by battleships. It gets chewed up by cruisers. Cruisers having the ability to switch to HE just absolutely shreds this thing, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. That's why I don't really fear the Edinburgh in any ship. Now, that being said, if you leave an Edinburgh alone, if you let him sit out there at his max range and get plunging fire into your ship, or get God help you if you give this thing a broadside. Even in a battleship, giving this thing a broadside is going to be a recipe for losing good chunks of health every 6 seconds. So you cannot underestimate this ship, but at the same time, it's not the scariest ship to come up against. It only has 3 torpedoes on either side. They only do 15,000 damage. You get that reduced if you take them on the belt, especially in anything that's got good reduction. You're only going to be taking, 7 to 10,000 damage per torpedo. So if you take 30,000 damage on a YOLO rush and then you're able to kill him, is it really the end of the day? It's half your health gone. Again, it's not the scariest ship to go up against in a battleship or a cruiser. Destroyers, you cannot charge a Edinburgh because this thing will two-shot you. I've gotten more dev strikes on destroyers with this thing than probably any other ship. So keep that in mind. This thing will wreck your destroyer. But that being said, it's armor piercing. So as you're going to see in this match, even though this thing will wreck your destroyer, and you can see I'm going to have to use the island cover here, we don't want to get into a fight with a Friesland who can see us, right? So we break contact. We're gonna sit here. We've got legendaries in the match. We've got a Yami right here. We've got an Alaska right here, and they're gonna kind of dictate how I play this match. But we're not going to just sit here and do nothing, guys. We're not just going to sit here and do nothing. We've got a Friesland to our left on our team. We've got the Friesland sitting in the smoke screen out here. And this is why I say this would have been an epic moment to have a freaking radar. But we don't have a radar. We do have smoke. And our smoke is going to be instrumental in this match. And you can see Friesland gets spotted and we get radared. And I'm not going to lie, I was caught off guard by this radar. I'm like, who the hell is radaring me? There's actually a chop I have to my right that's about 2 squares away. You can see the cruiser up against the island there on my right. If you look at the map, he is the one that's actually radaring me right now. But it doesn't matter. We're gonna shred this Friesland, and you can see how much damage we're gonna stack on this guy. He wants to talk about DPM. Well, if he's gonna give me a broadside, I will show him what DPM can mean for his low hit points. Now, unfortunately, we lose our Friesland loses all of his hit points too. But he puts out another smoke, and he gets long duration smoke. Now, the Edinburgh doesn't get that super long duration. It gets like average smoke. I get hit by a random Friesland shell, and it sets a fire. Again, fire chance in this game is so stupid. It makes no sense. Like, you get hit with one shell that has a 12% chance to set fire. It's a fire every time. Like, every time. There's no 12%. Like, I know 12% when I see it. And when you literally take a single round and you get a fire 9 times out of 10, that's not 12%, guys. So, I know It could just be RNG, right? It's just RNG. I just have bad RNG every game, every time, in any ship, no matter what it is. But I'm not here to complain about the RNG. We're actually here to farm these enemies, and we're gonna farm. We're already at 20,000 damage. We've had a pretty solid game already. Friesland out here, though, is gonna showcase that it makes it difficult to do any damage to things when they're not... I mean, that's a destroyer, and it's his butt, and I couldn't pin it. I bounced 4 shells off the butt of a destroyer. But this Iowa is going to showcase the complete opposite spectrum, and he's going to showcase that you leave an Edinburgh alone, broadside to you, and you're broadside to it, it's going to farm you for 5,000 damage a salvo every 6 seconds. That's all you need to know. And I don't care how much hit points you have. If you're getting hit for 5,000 damage every 6 seconds, you don't have long to live. Think about this. 5,000 damage. That is 5% of 100,000 damage. Right? So, 5,000 damage takes 20 salvos to kill a Grossa Kerfer. What does that mean in terms of time? Oh, just 20 times 6, guys. What is it? What's 20 times 6? Easy, guys. It's 120. So, in 120 seconds, 2 minutes of being broadside, a Grossa Kerfer dies. Now, obviously, that's in a perfect world where all your shots are landing and everything's going well, but that's what I'm saying. This thing is scary, but only in very, very certain situations. If you're in a destroyer and you get caught off by this thing, you're in a bad way. Kleber, Kaba, doesn't matter. Friesland, Loyang, really doesn't matter. Gearing, it doesn't matter. If you get caught by this thing in a destroyer, you're gonna die. Especially at any sort of close range, because these things, this armor piercing doesn't overpin destroyers like it does, or like most cruisers would. Which means you're getting full penetrations, which means you're able to just absolutely wreck destroyers' hit points. Now, we've done a pretty good job of maintaining our hit points. We got to sit in smoke, which is something we never get to do. Like, I never get to use smoke very often. Or at least not to sit in smoke and do my job. And that's where the Edinburgh really does pretty well, is when you have people that are able to spot for you, and you can use that range, you can use that DPM on people who are not looking at you. And you saw it with the Iowa, how quickly we could stack up some damage. Unfortunately, we're not going to get any like super serious like games in this thing, or at least I don't. I tend to play more aggressive. I tend to play games, or I tend to get into games where the games are over so fast because of the way we end up playing, that there's just no real chance to get those huge games. But it's still gonna be a good game. We're gonna showcase some more with this Yami. You can see we're closing the distance, but we're not firing at him. We don't want that Yami to shoot at us. We know he overmatches. So even if I go bow in on him, he's gonna probably dev strike me. So I don't want to take that chance. But that being said, as I get closer and closer to this Alaska, I have to start thinking about using my next smoke, because the Alaska is about to spot me. So you'll see pretty shortly I start slowing down. I throw it in reverse. You want to slow down before you hit the smoke, because this thing only gets like 2 or 3 puffs of smoke too. So your smokes are very narrow, very small amount of smoke screen. So you've got to keep that in mind. But we're going to reach out. We're going to touch this Alaska. He's also going to take a lot of damage from teammates. And he's just not long for this world as we hit his superstructure for several more penetrations. And then Yami out there is kind of begging for it. And he's stopped. You'll notice that there is no smoke coming from his smokestacks currently, meaning he is stopped. He's not reversing. He's not going forward. I guess he is still reversing at this point. You can see the smoke, and there it goes. Now his smoke has stopped. He's going to be slowing down. He's going to be stopping, and we're going to sit here and try to shoot his superstructure. Now, unlike the Americans and the Germans, the Yami is Japanese. It doesn't get that extended HP pool for its superstructure, but this thing will still absolutely be able to get full penetrations into his superstructure and do some serious damage. And now, we don't get to sit in our smoke because I kind of want to open the angle. I don't want to sit at him angled like this. So we want to get out there and actually get into a position where we can do some damage. And so that's why I pull out of the smoke. You can see when we do get some good hits, though, like we're actually getting 2,000 to 3,000 damage on a superstructure in a good shot every 6 seconds. So even in not the most ideal circumstances, you can get some good shots out of this thing, and we end up putting 239 shots on target. We've got 71,000 damage. We got to use the smoke. We got to show kind of where this thing's strengths are. We also showed in the previous match its weaknesses, and that's kind of why I wanted to showcase these two matches. Even though they weren't the greatest games in the world, I think they really did showcase the strengths and the weakness of these ships. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know this video is coming up a little bit late, and I apologize for that, but, you know, it is the way it goes sometimes. But 70,000 damage, it's 5th on the leaderboard, nothing crazy, 1,500 base XP, so if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.